So now we come to David Bohm, an original thinker in physics. His book, Wholeness in the Implicate Order, gives a quite different perspective on the material universe and indeed on the human being's relation to it. He says that the notion is that reality is to be understood as a process, and he refers to Heraclitus. The best image of process is perhaps that of the flowing stream. On this stream one may see an ever-changing pattern of vortices, ripples, waves, splashes, etc., which evidently have no independent existence as such. Ultimately, the entire universe with all its particles, including those constituting human beings, their laboratories, observing instruments, etc., has to be understood as a single undivided whole. What we perceive through our senses as empty space is actually the plenum, the full, which is the ground for the existence of everything, including ourselves. Now the question is how we perceive the plenum, of course. The things that appear to our senses are derivative forms, and their true meaning can be seen only when we consider the plenum, the totality, the fullness, in which they are generated and sustained, and into which they must ultimately vanish. And time can be seen as a projection of this multidimensional reality into a sequence of moments. So time is to some extent an illusion created from the sequence of moments. He goes on to say that the atom can perhaps best be regarded as a poorly defined cloud, dependent on its particular form on the whole environment, including the observing instrument. Now, from all this I deduce this, that the paradoxes of Zeno now seem to be open to more straightforward explanation. The arrow is not a persisting object travelling through a persisting substance, air. It is a pattern in relative translation through a patterning of the substrate which is interpreted as air. And similarly, the earth is not travelling through an insubstantial ether. It is a deformation, a pattern of the universal material substrate of the same nature as the light, which is also a patterning in the universal material substrate. The individual atom is a pattern which persists as a wave persists. Michelson and Morley assumed that the river and its banks were different in character. The river was flowing, but in fact so also were the banks. Neither space nor time as substrates through which something moves are real. So everything is momentary. Reflect on this a little, and I must come on to the question, how if everything is momentary, we manage to have science and history. Recognition of the momentariness of everything seems to lead to a cosmic, kaleidoscopic system, changing patterns in an unchanging substrate, instantaneous change, a result which resembles, it must be said, processes hypothesized in quantum physics. The idea of the momentariness of matter, of the cosmos, can have important consequences even for the most refined and elaborate cosmological and physical theories, including for quantum gravity, for space film, for superstring theory, for M-brane theory. William James adopted this view. Whilst we think our brain changes, and like the aurora borealis, the whole internal equilibrium shifts with every pulse of change, from one relative state of equilibrium to another, like the gyrations of a kaleidoscope. James says, the present moment of time, where is it, this present? It has melted in our grasp, gone in the instant of becoming. And so we have this kaleidoscopic view from William James, which others also share. The only fact of our immediate experience is the specious present. Means by specious, William James means that it's something that appears to us, but it has no reality in itself. There is between our body and other bodies an arrangement like that of pieces of glass that compose a kaleidoscopic picture. Our activity goes from an arrangement to a rearrangement. This is exactly how in a kaleidoscope one sees one picture immediately following another. The perception is that there is only the instant for ourselves and for the whole of the material universe. Matter, the cosmos, the world, ourselves, our brains. Our brains, one might conclude, have only the present moment. The past is our present brain-mind. The future is our present brain-mind. Our brains are instantaneous patterns changing from moment to moment, formed from the collection of structures, ultimately molecules, chemical elements, protons, electrons, quarks, and so on. The aggregations of electrons and protons which form us, the patterns which electrons and protons themselves are apparently travelling at incredible speeds as the world turns, as the solar system rotates, as the galaxy and supergalaxies turn. Pattern of intense movement, apparently. Patterns, but not bodies, are apparently in transit across the material universe. A pattern is a peculiarity in the material universe. Really, this is not such an extraordinary supposition. We are in fact formed of massive aggregations of cells which cluster in a way which suggests that they form a persisting unity, but in reality the cells forming us are disappearing and being replaced all the time. The components forming the cells are also changing all the time. The larger structures and ultimately the atoms which form them are moving out and being replaced, so that a cell also forms a specious unity, to use William James's term.